5 minutes past 11, you are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Mukwanda. Nobody likes to be yelled at. It's demeaning, embarrassing, and can be a frightening experience, especially for children. While most parents are guilty of raising our voices louder and more often than we sometimes mean to, unpacking why we yell and how yelling affects our children may be helpful information to have the next time your 3-year-old throws his plate or her plate of food across the kitchen. And to tell us more, we have parenting coach and school counselor Karen Quail. Good morning, Karen, and thank you for joining me. Karen, can you please unmute your mic?
Good
All
morning,
right.
Mariam. Sorry about that with the mic, and good morning to our listeners. And thank you to Salam Media for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining me. All right. So let's start off by finding out why do people yell? Why do parents yell? Why do teachers yell?
Um, well, Mariam, I can't say that I can speak for everybody, but I definitely think modeling played a role for us. Most of us grew up hearing people shout at us and yell at us when we did something wrong growing up. And I think many of us assume that that's what you do when you're cross. And perhaps we should be questioning that now, because if we look a little bit closer, we have to ask, does it actually work? I also came across a study which said that worldwide shouting is one of the most common discipline tools, except that worldwide there's also no evidence that it has any of the effects we want it to have. So it seems like we're hammering away with a tool here that doesn't work. I would also say that for the parent who's yelling or the teacher who's yelling, if that parent or teacher were to become self-aware in that moment and look at why they are yelling in that moment, you will often find that when we yell, it's because we started to feel out of control. There was a situation that we didn't know how to manage, and that was a very uncomfortable feeling. And that vulnerability we felt in the moment of not being able to handle or control it was, like I say, uncomfortable, and we switched over into something which maybe felt a bit stronger, which is yelling and trying to take control of the situation. But I think that it actually has the opposite effect. It doesn't help to control the situation.
hmm Now, what do kids learn from yelling or shouting?
Well, for one thing, I would say that when we yell or shout, we are setting a bad example, because if we were to ask ourselves, how do we respond when our children yell or shout? We do things like ask them to use their inside voice, not their outside voice, or we tell them not to shout at people or to not to be disrespectful. And so in our discipline with our children, I think what's very important is we need to model our values and not contradict them, because children copy us. And so when we shout, I think children learn that it's okay to shout under certain circumstances because they see us doing it. And I'm not sure that that's what we actually want to teach them. I also think that shouting can be scary for children sometimes. It depends on the child and how small or vulnerable they are, but they often, it's threatening or intimidating when an adult loses it like that. And children need to feel safe with us. Um, so I think I would want my children to be learning that they are safe with me, not learning to walk on eggshells and edit what they tell me in future. And so
hmm
I'm again saying I think the shouting teaches the wrong things.
hmm
The other thing a child might be learning from the situation is that this teacher or parent can't really handle their behavior. I think if I could just ask the listeners to think back when you were in school and a teacher lost it with you, did that help you respect that teacher more? Or did it leave you with that feeling that this teacher can't handle the class? You could actually feel that that teacher was out of control, and that didn't help you respect them more. Um, so I think that shouting sometimes sends a signal to children, I've lost it, I don't know how to handle the situation. And I don't think that helps children feel more contained. And by contained, I mean knowing that the adult can stop you when you're going too far, when you're being disrespectful, when you're going out the lines. I think that a sense of containment is important for children. And when we shout, we don't help that sense of containment. We actually show the children that we're not managing.
Hmm.
Hope
You
that makes
know,
sense.
going back to school days, etc., I remember when I was in primary school, I was a very quiet and timid child, and I can't really remember what exactly happened, but I just know that I was shouted at by the teacher, and because of that, I did not want to go to school anymore. So I ended up being
Mm,
homeschooled because of the teacher
wow.
that shouted me, and I'm like, you know what? This is not for me. And you kind of grow up with that feeling of what did I do wrong? I mean I'm just learning, and as a
Exactly.
child you're making mistakes and you learn. And that brings me to the next question of what are the effects, what are the long and short term effects that yelling has on a child?
So that's an interesting one. And although I did engage in several years of research on nonviolent discipline skills, the research available doesn't answer all the questions that we would have about this. But what was interesting was in terms of the short term effects, when there was a study looking at reprimands, they were looking at, in terms of the behavior of the children, which works better, a loud reprimand, like shouting, or a soft reprimand, where the person is speaking more gently and in control. And definitely the soft reprimand was more effective for managing the child's behavior. And the other thing they looked at was a long reprimand, such as when you go on and lecture the child, um, versus a short reprimand. It was also the shorter one that worked better. So I feel like with shouting, we're hammering away with something which the evidence is not showing us actually works. And then in terms of the long-term effects, like you yourself were sharing, Mariam, for some children, that teacher that shouts makes them feel unsafe. They can't actually focus on their learning because our brains are designed to monitor our environment all the time and see if we're safe or not. And if we're not safe, that is designed to be one of the most distracting things that we can experience. So the moment you think you're not safe, you're going to pull your attention out of everything else and focus on getting safe. So the example I always give is if you're crossing the road discussing an event that you're planning with somebody, and then a truck goes out of control and is about to knock you over, the thing you're not going to do is carry on planning your event and go, you know what, we should get serviettes, and I wonder if we have enough cups. You're not going to do that. The moment your brain tells you there's a possible danger, that truck is coming for me, you are going to put all your energy into getting out the way. And what we find with children is that children who feel unsafe in their environment put their energy into getting safe. And the things that they do to get safe are not always the things you're wanting them to do. If you're a teacher wanting them to focus on the work, don't make them feel unsafe in the class. And the ways children sometimes try to get safe also are things that we don't necessarily want to teach them. For instance, they've found that children from backgrounds where there's a lot of corporal punishment will be more likely to lie, for instance, to get out of trouble because they know they are not safe. So, in our punitive or harsh methods, threatening children, hitting them, shouting at them, we need to be careful because we're making them feel less safe by using those methods. And that's actually creating some of the exact behavior that we don't want to see in children. I hope
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, we children are going to grow up carrying this behavior with them as well. They're going to grow up being
Yes,
the shouters and the yellers, and it's going to be an ongoing cycle. So we have to break the cycle now while we still can. Karen, please stay with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll continue thereafter.
sure, sure.
For every refugee who lost their home,
For every community without water,
For every person searching for a way to give, Africa Muslims Agency has been at your service for 35 years, connecting hearts and changing lives. Thank you for helping us to serve the needy since 1987. Support our journey by donating to Africa Muslims Agency as we commemorate 35 years of empowering educating, and inspiring.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like tib black seed. You can find tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
There are an estimate of 153 million orphans worldwide. Change their lives by donating towards our Orphan Kind program. For 750 Rand per month, you can be the reason an orphan smiles. Go on, be Orphan Kind. Visit www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can help save these children's lives. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Prices are high, jobs are scarce, and the coldest days are here. South Africans are facing a bleak winter amidst global economic turmoil and soaring food costs. Keeping warm is an added expense. Let's help South Africa stay warm. Sponsor a blanket at just 90 Rand. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
11:17, you are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media, and on today's discussion we are talking about yelling at kids, yelling and shouting, and what other ways you can use to discipline instead of raising your voice. And if you've ever been yelled at, you know that that loud voice does not make the message clearer, and your children are no different. Shouting at them will make them tune out, and discipline will be harder, since each time you raise your voice, it lowers their receptivity. And still with me is Karen Quail, who is a parenting coach and school counselor. Karen, thank you for staying with us. Now, what can one do instead of yelling at their children?
Sure. Thanks, Mariam. First, I want to say that I completely agree with what you've just said about how shouting actually lowers the receptivity. I just really think you're spot on there. I also just, so often I hear adults saying things when they're cross with how somebody spoke to them. When somebody spoke to them disrespectfully, an adult will say something like, "He spoke to me like I'm a small child." And I always want to say, we shouldn't speak to children like that either. I think that's part of the thing. Let's start this by speaking to our children as respectfully as we want them to speak to people in the future. So I think to start with what to do instead, use a respectful tone with your children, a kind tone. And when people say to me, "I don't know what you mean," I always scale my children. This is what one lady said to me, "I always scale my children. I don't know what you mean by speak to them in a non-shouting or non-scolding tone." So I said to her, "Okay, so that's the way you normally speak to your children. How about your children's friend? Does your child have friends that come over to your house?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "How do you speak to them?" And she's like, "Oh, like that." Right? So often we do know how to do it, but we just don't seem to use it with the children in our own care, which is quite sad. Then what other things can we do? And I think that when parents have tools and teachers have tools that they can use to manage problem behavior, because we do need tools to manage problem behavior, the need for shouting decreases. So let me give a simple example here. Let's say your child has not picked up their toys and you've been asking them to pick up their toys and they're still not picking up their toys. Does one need to raise one's voice and shout at them to get them to pick up their toys? If you don't have other tools in your toolkit, you might be feeling like, well, shouting, I just need to shout now because they're not listening. Or perhaps you think that you need to do worse. You hear parents saying, well, you won't listen, you must feel. And actually, that's a situation a lot of us are in because we've grown up with a punitive mindset. Where we were little, we did things wrong, we got shouted at, we got threatened, we got hit, right? So those are the tools we sort of still unconsciously have in our toolkits. And we need to take those tools out because they're not helping us and put other tools in. Now let's go back to our situation with the toys all over the floor. Actually, that's a very easily dealt with situation. If the parent sees that the child is not responding, and then just waits a little until the child wants something. The child says, can I watch TV? Or can I go outside? And then the parent can use a very simple, non-violent tool called a when-then statement. When you've picked up your toys, then you can go outside. Or when you've picked up your toys, then you can watch TV. So to use the when-then statement, you take the thing they don't want to do and you make it dependent on the thing that you take the thing that they do want to do and you make that dependent on the thing that they didn't want to do. And now suddenly they're motivated to do it. They'll pick up those toys because they want to do the thing that they want to do. There are many other tools other than the when-then statement. For instance, if your children are fighting with each other and screaming and shouting and they're out of control and somebody's hit somebody else, don't go in and escalate the situation by shouting even louder. That's a situation where there's aggression, people are getting hurt. Give them a timeout from the thing which they're not managing, which is being with each other. So you might say timeout, remove them from each other for a bit. Perhaps use active listening, work out what's going on. But it's not going to help to come and add aggression to that situation by shouting. Also, when we think of shouting and lecturing, there are other situations where maybe the child's done something wrong already, and you feel like, okay, they've done it already, now I need to teach them a lesson, and you're going on with a whole long lecture and rubbing it in. That's actually quite unnecessary. They can learn that they've done something wrong by you pointing it out and then helping them and guiding them to put right. So that the focus of the discipline is on making amends rather than punishing the child and shaming them and making them feel as bad as possible. And there are many other tools, and I'd like to let the viewers know that these tools are available on the Peace Discipline website. So if you go to peacediscipline.com, you will find a toolkit on the website which gives a little explanation of a lot of different non-violent tools. And I explain these tools in more detail on a YouTube channel, on the Peace Discipline YouTube channel. So you can find videos which explain in more detail. There is in fact one about shouting as well on the YouTube channel. And you just look up Peace Discipline when you go onto YouTube and you'll find it there.
Mm-hmm. All right. And now when it comes to the relationship after many yelling, how do you fix that relationship? Because I know that kids are not as receptive anymore. You know, they withdraw. They don't come to you as much as they would before, or you would like them to. They see you now as the villain. So how do you fix that relationship?
Thank you, Mariam. I think that's a very important question. I think the sooner one acts to repair, the better. I don't think one should wait till it gets to that stage of absolute withdrawal and disconnect. I think any time as parents that we know that we've stepped out of line and done something which contradicts our values, because let's face it, most of us don't think that shouting is good. So when we do it, we should also act to repair that and not just expect children to say sorry when they shout. We should model apologizing when we've done something wrong. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to condone the behavior that you were shouting about. I think it's fine to go to a child and say something like, earlier on, when you did that thing, I may have been right to stop you or to tell you that that was wrong, but I didn't need to shout at you the way I did, and I'm very sorry. So there you're not condoning the behavior, but you are taking responsibility for where you went out of control and did something wrong, which is you speak so disrespectfully and shout at the child. And I think that when that's sincere from the parent, that goes a long way to restoring the relationship. Disconnection in relationships in the family is a normal thing that happens from time to time. You know, there are times when we get on each other's nerves, or we say something we shouldn't say, or, you know, we do something that upset another person. That disconnection is normal. What's important is, can we come back to each other? Can we repair? So if you have disconnected, shouted at your loved ones, your children, your partner maybe, put as a high priority repairing that situation.
Mhm. All right. So, Karen, thank you so much for your time. What are your final thoughts, and where can people find you? Are you on social media platforms?
Oh, okay. So final thoughts. I'll reiterate what I said in the beginning, that discipline is something which should model our values and not contradict them. And I'll say always, and any times I get to speak to parents, I always want to say children need to feel safe with us. And the reason I call the approach that I'm talking about peace discipline is that if we want to live in a less violent society, we need to do something different with our children, because the first place many children are experiencing threat and violence is in their own homes, where they're supposed to experience safety and love. And so peace discipline also, we want to have methods, discipline methods, which we can have peace of mind about because they fit with our values. And then we will also have that more peaceful home, because children will be learning peaceful and respectful ways. So that's how I'd wrap up with the content. How to find me? I admit I'm a little bit of a recluse, but I can be. You can find me on the website and the YouTube channel. And then if you want to contact me directly for a coaching session or for a talk at your institution or school, then you can email me on karen@peacediscipline.com. But the address is on the website, the Peace Discipline website. And yeah, you can reach me through that. I'm not on the social media much.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and for the insight.
Thank you very much, Mariam, and thanks to our listeners.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Karen Quail, a parenting coach and a school counselor, explaining why shouting at your kids is not effective discipline and what you can do instead. If you would like some more information and where to find Karen, visit her website, peacediscipline.com. And you can also go to YouTube for more information or a vast explanation on certain points that you mentioned. It's Peace Discipline on YouTube as well. Just go to YouTube and search Peace Discipline, and you'll find pointers that you can use. And if you are facing a situation like shouting or yelling at your kids, what you can do instead, hitting, what you can do instead, this, what you can do instead. There are all different ways of disciplining your child according to how they behave. And yelling at children is not a good thing. Yelling that comes with verbal put downs and insults can be qualified as emotional abuse, and you don't want to be an emotionally abusive parent. You want your kids to know that the home is a safe space, and that their parent is someone who is warm and comforting and will provide that protection that they need, because if they're not getting it from you, they are going to go and look for it outside. It also makes children more susceptible to bullying, since their understanding of healthy boundaries and self-respect are now skewed, all thanks to you and your shouting and your yelling, etc. So let's try to be good role models to our kids, so that they can grow up being good role models to their kids and to the rest of society as well. We don't want people who are always shouting in with that, do you know who I am type of attitude. No, we don't know who you are and we don't care. So just go on and live your best life, but also be humble and kind and watch your tone. All right, you can share your comments with us. And if you have any further questions for Karen, you can leave them in the comment section below. It is 11:30. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media. We will be right back.